Good to see
Hello.
you.
Yeah, good to see you. My name is Tomohiro Machiyama. Yeah, nice to meet you. And I'm a huge fan of you.
Oh, thank you very much. Very kind
First
of
of
you.
all, yeah. And your movie, the Bibi's File, is a very brave film.
Yes, thank you. It was I think it's important.
Mhm. I live in the United States. I live in Berkeley, California. Um,
Oh, you
but the
do.
yeah, but the movie, the Vivid File, has not been commercially distributed in the United States.
It
Why?
has been, but in a very limited way. It is available on a site called jolt.film.
Mhm,
I think later this month, probably actually in about a week, it will be on Amazon, and then after that, finally on Apple. Uh,
mhm,
but you're right. With the exception of a very brief theatrical run,
mhm.
um, it hasn't been much seen in the United States. Much to my disappointment.
Why? They are very afraid of the some
Yes, I
political
think they
situation. Yeah.
are. I mean, I remember when Alexis and I were going to the
Mhm,
Toronto Film Festival. There
mhm,
were a number of networks, including NBC and ABC, who were interested in doing stories about it. Um, and then at the last minute, they all canceled. And
oh,
I know for a fact, in terms of NBC, they canceled because I was told they didn't want to upset Netanyahu, which
wow,
seems like a kind of a terrible thing for a news organization to make that determination. They're not, their job is to
wow,
upset people in power. So,
oh,
um, so yeah, that was very disappointing. Um,
mhm,
and but we've had better luck, in other countries.
mhm,
It's had a lovely run recently in Germany,
mhm,
also in the UK, and I believe
mhm,
it's going out in Spain shortly. But I'm
mhm,
surprised at how scared the world has been
mhm,
to allow this film to be seen. It's an important film because it
mhm,
really is a kind of a key to understanding um, Netanyahu's policies. They all
mhm,
stem from this terrible corruption.
mhm. Yeah, very surprising. Yeah. And very important, I think. Yeah. But you still have a problem about the publicity in the United States.
Yes.
Mm,
We'll see what happens. I'm very much looking forward to it being on Amazon and Apple,
mm,
and I'm going to do a certain amount of social media promotion, and
mm,
my friends at Magnolia
mm,
um, will
mm,
help put it out. But it's been
mm,
disappointing that
mm,
some of the key networks and even reviewers, the Wall
mm.
Street Journal refused to review it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow. 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 Roger Ebert, if the Roger Ebert is still alive, he
that's
wants to
right.
write about it, I think.
That's right.
Let's talk about the beginning of the project. Is that true? And this project began with the anonymous video tape or data was sent to you.
I was approached by the source.
Mm,
I'll just refer to that person as the source.
mm,
Said, would you be interested in
mm,
footage of
mm,
the police interrogation videos related to
mm,
the Netanyahu
mm,
corruption case? And of course, I was interested,
mm,
but I requested to see some. When I
mm,
saw it, I realized that it was something very important. And
mm,
so I said, yes, I'll do it. Yes,
mm,
I'm interested. And yes, I'll do my best to make a movie. You
mm,
have to assure me I'm the only one who's getting this stuff. And then I'll
mm,
see if I can put something together. And so the source
mm.
downloaded to me about 1,000 hours of
Wow.
interrogation videos related to the Netanyahu case. And then I called Alexis Bloom,
Mm,
uh, who was a colleague for some time, and asked if she would direct it, and she
Mm-hmm.
said yes. And so we were off and running. But it all started with it was actually um, a text I got on Signal.
Uh, the movie starts with interrogation. It can be said, I think, a small bribery charge, but then it gradually accumulates to the huge war. So, like a snowball, I think.
I think that's right. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I've noticed, and I've done a lot of films about corruption, it tends to be progressive or evolutionary. It starts with something small and
Mm-hmm.
then gradually grows until it's something very big.
Mm-hmm.
And and I think it started with cigars and champagne,
Mm-hmm.
um, and jewelry for Netanyahu's wife.
Mm-hmm.
And while I mean the amounts were not insignificant, other prime ministers had resigned,
Mm-hmm.
um, for lesser amounts. I think it was about $250,000 worth of jewelry, champagne, and cigars. Still, it wasn't billions and billions or millions and millions of dollars, but it was a sense of entitlement that the Netanyahus had. And then the corruption expanded and extended to attempts to trade favors that were worth millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, for favorable coverage in the media, because
Mm-hmm.
Netanyahu was obsessed with
Mm-hmm.
favorable coverage in the media. And
Mm-hmm.
so that became an even bigger deal. And
Mm-hmm.
then, of course, in order to elude the consequences of that corruption, Netanyahu tried to undermine the judiciary in
Yeah.
Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think um, there's other things to be talked about in terms of October 7th. But I think once the October 7th attack happened,
Mm-hmm.
uh, he was determined
Mm-hmm.
to prolong the conflict for as long as possible in order to elude any consequences. So long as he was the prime minister, in a moment of crisis and emergency, he
Mm-hmm.
had to slow walk the trial, which has been going on for years and years now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a terrifying story of what happens when somebody very powerful
Mm-hmm.
gets um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
involved in a criminal corruption case,
Mm-hmm.
and then does terrible, terrible, terrible things in order to
Mm-hmm.
elude any
Mm-hmm.
reckoning.
Yeah. He is a war for just for his personal survival.
Yes, I think that's true. I think it's very much
Wow.
true. I,
That's
I,
so
I think
evil.
that I think that
Mm-hmm.
you could expect Israel, of
Mm-hmm.
course, to
Mm-hmm.
retaliate after an attack like 10/7, but to extend the conflict, which you can't even really call a war, because at a certain point,
Mm-hmm.
the overwhelming force of the IDF was so superior to anything that Hamas had at its disposal. It was more or
Mm-hmm.
less target practice. And there were
Mm-hmm.
any number of opportunities for Netanyahu to get the hostages back or to
Mm-hmm.
negotiate a ceasefire, none of
Mm-hmm.
which he was particularly interested in. He
Mm-hmm.
was more than anything interested in staying in power, because that's the other part of this corruption
Mm-hmm.
is the need to stay in power over everything else, and particularly over principle. And in order to stay in power, he allied himself with forces that were extremely brutal and not interested at all in human rights, particularly Smotrich and Ben-Gvir.
Yeah. So they're very evil. But in the movie, there are some kind of funny points, funny moments.
Yes,
So
there are.
yeah. So for example, the Arno
Yes.
Muchin, yeah, and Sheldon and Miriam uh, Adelson. Yeah.
Miriam
They
Adelson. Yes, yes, yes.
yeah, Adelsons. So they're very infamous for being huge Israel, donors. But in this video, in this movie, they show, their hatred against the Netanyahu.
Yes. Because I think they felt that they were angry
Yeah.
that they had to
Mhm.
supply him with favors.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that Netanyahu in the videos is always talking about, sure, friends come over to my house and then
Mhm.
sometimes they bring gifts. They were told what gifts to bring, what kind of cigars he liked, what kind
Right.
of pink champagne his wife wanted, what kind of
Right.
jewelry she wanted. Yeah, and they were offended and pissed off, but they're business people.
Yeah.
So, of course, they're going to do what they're going to do, and but I think they were pissed off and offended. And same thing with Miriam Adelson. Um, you know, Bibi had become um, Bibi needed the
Mhm.
accoutrements of power, and so
Mhm.
he demanded certain things that made him feel
Mhm.
special.
Mhm. In the movie, so Netanyahu looks like very different from the network television. He's in the interrogation, so he looks very nervous and weak and sometimes very insecure. So totally different from his image of the news.
I do think that that's one of the important things about the film and the
Mm,
footage that we were leaked.
mm,
It's not that Netanyahu isn't performing, and he
mm,
is certainly performing for these police officers. But you're right. It's not the kind of stage managed Netanyahu that we've come to expect, the grand statesman. He looks petty. He looks venal. He looks like he's lying. He is lying, and they catch
yeah.
him lying. And they're sort of rolling their eyes, like they're laughing. Like, you really expect us to believe this? Like, oh, I don't remember. Oh, I don't
Yeah,
remember.
I don't
Oh,
remember. I don't remember.
yeah, this guy has an unbelievable memory. Of course he remembers. So yes, I think that's one of the really interesting things about the footage of the
Mhm,
interrogation videos is you
mhm,
see Netanyahu in a way that's not stage managed. I
mhm.
mean, even so, it's in his office. In his office, behind his head is the map of the Middle East, good production design. Um, and he's certainly performing, but he's
Mhm.
performing for an audience that he thinks he knows, and he thinks that this is never going to go out. It's never going to be seen in the light of day. He makes certain comments like, he refers to The Godfather,
Oh
the
yeah.
American movie. Keep your
Yeah.
friends close and your enemies closer. Uh,
Mhm.
you know, that's not something I think he would say if he was being interviewed on American television. His also his hubris and his uh, sort of narcissistic belief in
Mhm.
his ability to keep the lid on Hamas. All this, he, the performance that he's doing is for a small group of insiders. He never thought that this material would be seen by the world.
The Godfather's quote means he financing the Hamas. That's so kind of evil. And, he actually sold the seeds of the war by
He
himself.
did. And I think there's an investigation waiting for Netanyahu someday, somehow, somewhere, if
Mhm,
the conflict ever ends.
mhm,
But we must remember that, the
mhm,
agenda for Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, his two key allies
mhm,
in his coalition government,
mhm,
is really to annex more of the West Bank. And
mhm.
what better way to accomplish that than to sort of believe that you've bought off Hamas in Gaza, and therefore undermine, you know, treat them as if they're
Mhm.
the representatives of the Palestinian people, and thereby undermine the
Mhm.
Palestinian Authority on the West Bank.
Mhm.
But in so doing, you're
Mhm.
absolutely correct.
Mhm.
He allowed millions of dollars to flow from Qatar
Mhm.
into the coffers of Hamas, which
Mhm.
then found their way to weapons and operational plans for October 7th.
Mhm. But finally, the Israel, you know, agreed to ceasefire. So, do you believe that?
We'll see. I mean, I hope there's a ceasefire just so that the killing can stop.
Mhm.
Uh, but Netanyahu really doesn't want
Mhm.
anything but total
Mhm.
total victory, in his words. So we'll
Mhm.
see whether or not the ceasefire holds. But
Mhm.
it would be a great thing if the hostages were finally released and
Mhm.
if the killing stopped, at least
Mhm.
for a moment. So let's hope. But
Mhm.
the way it happened is so
Mhm.
fantastical. And the idea that Donald Trump would somehow be partially responsible for the ceasefire is really a
Mhm.
jaw dropper.
Mhm. Yeah, so, but even he stopped the war against the Gaza. Netanyahu is spreading the wars around, you know.
Well, he wants permanent conflict with
Mhm.
Iran, with Lebanon, with
Mhm.
Syria. I
Mhm.
mean, that's how he stays out of prison. So long as he's
Ah.
the commander in chief,
Mhm.
he stays out of prison.